My sister hijacked every relationship I had for years, so I introduced her to a man who destroyed her life completely and left her facing consequences she never imagined. My sister hijacked every relationship I had for years. So, I set her up with someone who ruined her entire existence. I was blessed with a permanent romantic saboteur the moment my younger sister Diane entered this world. And I'm not discussing shared clothing or harmless infatuations. I mean the type of interference where if I brought a guy home, she'd have him completely enchanted within days. If I presented someone during family gatherings, she'd already be messaging him privately before we finished eating. If I shared a romantic picture online, she'd mysteriously encounter him at his regular hangout spot the following day. People constantly mentioned Diane inherited mom's gorgeous features while I received dad's clever mind. The contrast hurt, but I managed until the relationship sabotage began. It started harmlessly during our teenage years. My boyfriend, Trevor, suddenly preferred studying at our place every evening. Diane would drift past wearing her cheerleading outfit, requesting his assistance with her mathematics assignments. I missed the scheming back then because I believed in both of them entirely. But reviewing those moments now, the warning signs were blazing like neon lights. Once we reached our 20s, Diane's methods became razor-sharp in their execution. I was with Cameron for half a year before introducing him to our family. 7 days after that catastrophic meal, Diane faced a crisis and required his strong presence to comfort her at 2 a.m. They became intimate that identical evening. Next arrived Marcus from my advertising firm. Identical strategy, family introduction, fake emergency, late-night consolation meeting. When I found their passionate messages, she had the nerve to tilt her face and grin innocently. "I'm simply ensuring they deserve you, Laurel," she announced, fluttering her lashes. Marcus failed spectacularly. Internally, I had to acknowledge she made a valid point. If these gentlemen would desert me for my sister so quickly, perhaps they weren't my perfect matches anyway. However, that reasoning did nothing to soothe the betrayal scorching my soul. Then Derek appeared, the one who almost destroyed me. We'd been together for 24 months, discussing marriage seriously after I completed my medical training. Diane became intoxicated at his celebration, the event I'd organized for weeks, and kissed him directly in front of everyone at the restaurant. When he selected her instead of me, she had the audacity to announce on social media, "Sometimes you can't control who captures your heart completely." Sorry, not sorry. Mom confronted me during Thanksgiving, her tone cutting like the blade she held. "You must stop showcasing these men around Diane," she snapped while mixing the sauce. "She cannot restrain herself when you wave temptation directly before her eyes. Why do you continue enabling her failures?" In my perspective, I hadn't been waving anything. I'd been attempting to create substantial connections only to witness them collapse under my sister's persistent charm campaign. 3 months afterward, destiny favored me at my former roommate's ceremony in Chicago. That's when I encountered Connor. Everything I'd always imagined packaged in a 6'2" frame. Compassionate, accomplished as a technology developer, and seemingly resistant to feminine manipulation. For 8 wonderful months, I kept him completely hidden from my relatives. We traveled to distant cities for outings, avoided sharing romantic images, and I revealed nothing about him to anyone. I believed I'd finally defeated Diane's relationship theft scheme. This represented the most balanced, authentic partnership I'd ever known. Connor discussed our destiny with such conviction that I began trusting in fairy tale endings once more. But then my talkative cousin Amanda accidentally revealed Connor to Mom during a conversation, who naturally informed Diane within hours. My sister's investigation abilities matched federal agents. She located him through his employer's platform within days. The betrayal struck me like a massive truck when I used my spare key to enter Connor's place and discovered them entwined together in our shared bed. The most painful aspect wasn't catching them together. It was Diane's response. She rose completely unclothed and totally unashamed and delivered the fatal strike. "Honestly, I helped you tremendously," she declared, collecting her garments with complete indifference. "He barely lasted 10 minutes. You deserve much better than that, sister." Connor simply shrugged, not bothering to hide himself. Your sister's far too attractive for me to ignore. You get it, right? I remained there shaking with fury and shame while Diane kissed him farewell like I was non-existent, like I was merely decoration in the space. That devastating instant clarified everything for me. Diane didn't take my partners from sisterly concern or innocent desire. She acted because she was able to, because she relished watching me fall apart, because ruining my joy had become her sick pastime. Walking to my car in the lot, my hands trembling so violently I could barely hold the keys, I reached a conclusion that would transform everything. Diane desired men she couldn't refuse. Perfect, I'd provide her exactly what she craved, packaged in a form that would demolish her from within. The strategy began developing in my thoughts during the 40-minute journey home. Diane consistently chose the identical category. Handsome, charismatic, apparently successful gentleman who made her feel selected and precious. She never examined beyond appearances, never questioned their claims or histories. That weakness would cause her ruin. I dedicated the following weeks to exploring public files, legal databases, and investigation sites. That's how I found Vincent Romano, an incredibly attractive man who presented himself as an investment professional from Denver. Recently separated after his former spouse documented years of financial and psychological mistreatment in legal papers. 2 different protection orders from previous girlfriends. Currently being examined for investment fraud. Ideal. Vincent's professional profile portrayed him as a thriving businessman complete with corporate photographs that could have secured him modeling work. But investigating further exposed the reality. A clever criminal who focused on manipulating women into financial destruction. I established a false professional profile as a possible investor and contacted him with a business opportunity. We met at a coffee shop in central Denver, where I performed the role of fragile older sibling flawlessly. I displayed Diane's social media images, raving about how she consistently took my boyfriends because she was so irresistibly stunning. I simply cannot match her, I said, allowing my voice to break with rehearsed feeling. Every man I've loved eventually selects her instead. I feel completely worthless. Vincent's expression brightened like a hunter discovering injured quarry. He perceived exactly what I intended him to see. A damaged woman he could easily control with a beautiful sister who symbolized the ultimate prize. You appear to be an amazing person, Laurel, he said, extending across the surface to grasp my hand. Any man who would abandon you for another is foolish. Hook, line, and sinker. We began dating immediately with me acting the part of the infatuated girlfriend while he established the foundation for his typical scheme. He overwhelmed me with costly meals at upscale restaurants, weekend excursions to mountain resorts, and promises of a shared future. But I could see through his act. Every compliment was planned, every action designed to make me emotionally reliant. After 3 weeks of this performance, I informed him I wanted to keep our relationship private from Diane because she had a pattern of taking my boyfriends. Then I invited him as my companion to Mom's birthday meal at a family restaurant, knowing precisely what sequence I was initiating. Vincent believed he was manipulating me, positioning himself to make me his next target while adding Diane as an additional conquest. He had no clue he was entering a snare I'd spent weeks creating. At Mom's birthday dinner, Vincent executed his part perfectly. He treated Diane like she was transparent while covering me with attention that seemed authentic enough to deceive everyone present. He praised my pasta selection, laughed at Dad's awful humor, and even brought Mom flowers. But Diane couldn't tolerate being overlooked, especially by such an attractive man. She intensified exactly as I anticipated, touching Vincent's arm during conversation, leaning too near when she giggled, sharing private jokes only he could understand. Her flirtation became so apparent that even our unaware parents began noticing. I excused myself to the restroom and observed through the slightly open entrance as Diane moved in for the conquest. My sister's lovely, but she's quite boring in every aspect, she whispered, trailing her finger along Vincent's arm. I could demonstrate things she wouldn't even consider attempting. When I returned to the table and caught them sharing contact information, I threw my wine glass directly at Vincent's face and departed crying. The performance of my lifetime, complete with makeup streaming down my face. Diane called that evening, her voice filled with false worry that didn't deceive me for an instant. Vincent totally approached me at dinner, she said. But honestly, you're better off without him. Something about him feels really suspicious. Within 2 days, she was sharing social media updates from his expensive apartment in the wealthy district. Within 7 days, she'd fallen completely in love with his deceptions. Within 30 days, she'd moved in entirely and granted him access to her financial accounts for shared costs. I observed everything develop from the sidelines, experiencing a combination of satisfaction and increasing discomfort. Diane was walking blindly into danger, and I was the one who directed her toward it. But after years of having my heart broken by her selfishness, I couldn't force myself to alert her about the threat she faced. The first crack in Diane's ideal new existence appeared 6 weeks later when an attorney representing Vincent's former wife contacted her directly. Vincent had concealed assets during his separation proceedings, and now Diane could be held responsible as a partner in fraud. They're claiming I might face lawsuits too, Diane called me, fear entering her tone. But Vincent clarified everything. His ex-wife is simply bitter and attempting to create problems. I made understanding sounds while secretly knowing this was merely the start. Next came the discovery that Vincent's investment company was actually an elaborate pyramid scheme. Diane had already invested her complete $30,000 savings, convinced she was participating in the foundation of the next major technology venture. When government agencies closed the operation, her money disappeared instantly. It must be an error, she cried during another midnight conversation. Vincent's attorneys are challenging it. He claims we'll recover everything, plus additional returns. But when Diane attempted to leave his apartment after discovering more lies, Vincent revealed his true nature. He seized her wrist so forcefully it fractured, then trapped her in the bedroom while he screamed about ungrateful women who didn't value everything he'd provided them. When she finally escaped and tried to access her accounts, she learned he'd drained everything: checking, savings, even her retirement fund. Worse, he'd used her personal details to obtain credit cards and loans under her identity, burying her beneath $80,000 in debt she never realized existed. The final strike came at sunrise on a Tuesday when federal agents destroyed the entrance to Vincent's apartment. They found Diane's signature on countless fraudulent papers Vincent had deceived her into signing, making her an unknowing partner in investment fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. My phone rang at 6:47 in the morning. Diane's name appeared on the display, but I allowed it to reach voicemail. Diane's message was barely understandable through her crying. "Laurel, please. I'm in jail, and they're claiming I might face prison. Vincent used me for everything, and now federal agents believe I was assisting him. I know I harmed you, but please, I'm pleading with you. I need assistance." I listened to it 3 times before erasing it. The local media covered the story within days. Local woman arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud operation. Diane's arrest photo flashed across the evening news. Her makeup smeared and her eyes empty with devastation. Mom called immediately, frantic. "You must help your sister. She made errors, but she doesn't deserve this. She made her own decisions." I responded calmly, just like she did with Cameron, Marcus, Derek, and Connor. The silence extended between us before Mom whispered, "You knew, didn't you? You knew what he was." I didn't respond because the truth was too complex for a simple yes or no. Had I known Vincent would destroy Diane this thoroughly? Not precisely. Had I researched him sufficiently to understand he was dangerous? Definitely. Diane eventually accepted guilt to reduce charges in return for testifying against Vincent. She served 8 months in minimum security prison and emerged with a criminal record, ruined credit, and a restraining order that prevented Vincent from contacting her again. The family gatherings ended. Mom couldn't view me the same way, torn between horror at my actions and reluctant respect for my systematic revenge. Dad simply shook his head whenever Diane's name arose, mumbling about natural results and consequences returning home. Diane relocated across the nation to Portland after her release, working as a coffee server and slowly reconstructing her existence. We haven't communicated in 2 years, but I occasionally check her social media. She appears older now, more careful. The confident, predatory spark in her eyes has been replaced by something quieter and more hesitant. Sometimes I question if I went too far, if destroying my sister's life was worth the satisfaction of finally winning our twisted competition. But then I recall Connor's shrug, Diane's naked arrogance, and years of watching my happiness crumble for her amusement. She received exactly what she'd been requesting her entire life, a man she couldn't resist. She simply didn't expect him to resist destroying everything she treasured. I've been in therapy for 12 months now, processing the complex feelings of orchestrating someone's downfall, even someone who'd hurt me repeatedly. My therapist claims revenge rarely delivers the peace we anticipate. And she's correct. I don't feel victorious or justified. Mostly, I feel hollow where all that anger used to exist. But I also rest better knowing that Diane will never steal another woman's partner again. Some lessons can only be learned through complete devastation. And my sister finally learned hers the difficult way.